Good morning, everybody. Welcome into this edition of CanesInSight Daily. I am Peter Ariz. We'll be joined here momentarily by D Money. As always, thank you to the law offices of Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys. Dial 1-800-747-FREE, 1-800-747-3733 to take back control of your life with Anajar and Levine. The portal does not stop, just like the law offices of Anajar and Levine. Everybody, we got news. We got news as it continues to trickle in here. The portal, we heard last night as D-Money did his live show, Gerard Pringle returning. That was a big one for Miami to get back. He was a big priority, someone that they aggressively tried to keep as soon as he entered his name in the portal, even before that, trying to prevent him from even entering. Jojo Trader enters the portal last night officially. I would keep an eye on NC State, as I know D Money has mentioned previously on this show. So we'll get into both of those a little bit here. Lance Roers will be joining us in a little bit as well. It's going to be a little painful probably, but looking back at the game against Indiana there upon further review, as we do every week with Lance. We got a lot of extra Lance this year with the playoff run. So excited to talk to him, and then also look ahead here to see kind of retool. Miami already has made some big pickups here. Damon Wilson looks like Darian Mensah could be coming in the fold here. We have some Mensah news to discuss here at the start of the show. Jordan Seaton still very much alive here for Miami. Oregon, LSU also involved, but the Canes are very much in. Have to expect a decision has to be coming there pretty soon. Cooper Barkate at wide receiver. Mensah's one of his good buddies who's in the portal as well. So I'm excited about what they've done. Expecting another addition here outside of Jordan Seaton on the offensive line, as well as you've lost a lot of bodies there. So the moves that they've made thus far have been expected, and in terms of what you needed to add, but I still think there could be some more here. Could there be a tight end added? We'll see. I think they feel very good about what Luca Gilbert has to bring to the table, but if they end up adding some here late, wouldn't surprise me. Linebacker as well. That's another one that maybe they add someone late here. Safety, we saw Conrad Hussey was on campus yesterday. Jadeus Richard, Amari Wallace have both entered the portal here in the last couple days, so potentially a depth addition there for Miami. But yeah, guys, D-Money's going to be joining me here any moment, so we're just waiting for him to get on here. And then again, Lance Roers will be joining us today. Let me pull up this. Let me pull up the news from today. So this morning, as Pete Nakos says, Duke quarterback Darian Mensah has filed an emergency motion for reconsideration of the temporary restraining order against him, requesting his preliminary injunction hearing be moved from February 2nd to Friday, January 23rd, which of course is today. The court ruled this week that he can't enroll at another school before the injunction hearing. So again, guys, my understanding of this is obviously the hearing on the 2nd was, they were gonna basically from there make some decisions as to what the next steps were in this process. He would most likely be ruled that they can't stop him from enrolling at Miami or another school, but there may be some damages in terms of a buyout or a clause where Miami has to pay back some money to Duke here. But what this is saying, because remember, he can't enroll in a school as of right now until that February 2nd hearing is over with. What they're saying here now is they're trying to move that up to today. And again, there is a deadline as D-Money comes in here. There is a deadline to enroll at school. But from my understanding, that's not going to be a thing here as Miami understands this situation is very unique. They'll be, kind of extending this period for this situation, even if you weren't able to get this hearing moved up to today on today, this Friday the 23rd, and if they weren't able to get it done this weekend, then you'd have to wait until the 2nd. D, welcome in. And one thing I'll say on this too, I'm not sure. I know Miami would love to get him on campus, Mensah, ASAP, in terms of a visit, right? But I kind of heard some mixed things because I don't know if they want to bring him. They're allowed to bring him on campus, but just in terms of how things play out here, not sure that they would want to actually bring him on campus until this gets resolved. But good morning.
Yeah, so this is nothing to be too worked up about. Basically, they're just trying to speed up the process. So February 2nd is the hearing on the injunction, which is what keeps him from enrolling in Miami yesterday, right? So they're trying to move up that decision to today. I wonder when this was filed, because the timing seems a little weird. Because then today's Friday, and they're trying to get this thing resolved today. But yeah, so basically, motion for reconsideration would basically mean you shouldn't have entered the TRO in the first place, which is like the placeholder between when they first filed and moved for the TRO and the ultimate hearing on the February 2nd. So the TRO, temporary restraining order, temporary, the key word, basically just holds things in place until that hearing in February 2nd. Multiple reasons why you do this. I think in this case, the judge recused himself, meaning the judge that heard the first part of this right when this case got filed said, I'm a Duke booster. My wife's a Duke librarian. I'm recusing myself. But before he recused himself, he put in the TRO. And what the TRO did was basically keep the status quo, meaning Mensah could not go to Miami until the bigger hearing on February 2nd, which would be in front of the new judge with more briefing, meaning like more writing, more papers sent back and forth explaining everybody's positions. So it was really just, look, you think of it like a placeholder, like keeping the status quo. That's what the TRO is about. So that's in place right now, and that's what's keeping Mensah from going to Miami. Mensah is now saying, you got to move this up. I don't want to run up against any deadlines. If I'm trying to transfer, I'm already in the portal. So move this thing up to today. Let's get this resolved. Give me some freedom. And we'll either have the big hearing on the 23rd, which is that's what the motion for expedited hearing is. Like, let's have the big hearing that's for February 2nd, today, Friday. Let's just get this thing done. And then the other part of it is the TRO that's preventing me from enrolling right now. Let's lift that. So that's where we're at. It's just trying to speed things up.
Yep. No, it's a good sign. We'll see if it gets if the request to move it up to today actually gets granted or not.
And by the way, if you see it got denied, and I'm no info on it, I'm just saying, if you do see it got denied, don't think it's like we lost the case. That just means that like they're saying like, all right, we're not going to deal with this now. We'll deal with it on the original scheduled date of February 2nd or some other date. Like, so
but you know how it'll be construed if it gets.
That's what it is.
Oh, it's been denied. They're gonna the headlines will be wild.
Yeah, this is timing. These are all timing deals.
Michael Caputi asked if we should be worried at all. No. Mm-mm.
Well, I mean, about this, no. In terms of the whole thing, I mean, look, there's potential liability as far as like, Miami could end up paying money here.
Well, I think if Miami was making these moves, they knew what they were getting themselves into.
And look, Pete, there's always, again, me on this side, there's always a possibility of something crazy. That's how these things go. You never are 100% certain on any of these things. Right. So to me, say there's no chance that this guy does something crazy, the judge, no, he could. But if he were to say that basically Mensah cannot move to Miami, cannot enroll in Miami and play football, this would be a seismic ruling in college football. It would go against everything that's been done in the past. I think the NCAA would not like it because you're basically asking a state court to rule on things that you want to solve yourself through congressional intervention. If you treat them like an employee, you can get a situation where they use this as precedent to say we are employees. We deserve to be a class of employees, and we're employees. That means we're entitled to all these benefits, which you're not giving us right now. If you're going to keep us from moving and treat us like an employee with these contracts, then we must be employees. So I don't think
you don't think he wants to set that precedent.
Yeah, aside from Score and Duke people wanting Mensah to not go to Miami because they don't like him and they're mad at him, I don't think anybody wants Duke to win that part of this case because there's too much of a can of worms. And if you're looking at it from a broader perspective and you're saying we want to keep people from breaking these contracts, Miami has to pay a lot of money. That's a disincentive to breaking these contracts. Not every school like it can do what Miami did and afford this kind of player with an extra tax on top. So even if Miami ends up paying a lot of money, to me, that still serves as a disincentive for people breaking these contracts, which is what Duke wants. They want people to not break these contracts.
Yeah.
But to go the full step of, we want people to, if they break these contracts, they can't even enroll in the school and they're treated like employees. That's a whole can of worms that would upend 100 years plus of NCAA's model, even after the NIL, even after the House settlement. They do not want these guys to be treated as employees that can't move. Because, I mean, that sure they wanted to not be able to move, but when you do that, you open up the can of worms that they are in fact employees, which brings a host of benefits that they don't want to pay. That's the simple way to say it, which is why I think the NCAA doesn't want this thing to go that way. Duke may think they want it to go that way in this short-sighted manner, but big picture, they don't want that. They don't want Carlos Boozer or Cameron Boozer to be an employee, all these guys. So I think ultimately the best thing would happen is obviously if this gets granted, we get the result today. We're watching Mensah highlight videos tomorrow. Overall, I think this thing's going to settle. That's what most people are saying. I think that's right, just because, again, the implications if Duke wins are crazy. And if they lose, it's a money deal in arbitration. No one will know anything. It'll get settled anyways, most likely there, just based on the respective liability. Or it could go all the way through arbitration and no one will hear about it. But it won't affect Mensah's ability to play football for Miami.
Yep. Just going to take some extra steps to get there. That's all. D, how are you feeling this morning? I know you hopped in a couple minutes late here, but I don't know what you wanted to start with today. That was the first.
We got Lance in the bullpen, right?
Morning. Yes, but I mean he's not in. Have you sent him the I don't have his info, so
yeah, I'll send him the link right now. Here we go. This is elite podcasting right now. All right, Pete. So talk about the Miami Hurricanes football program while I get Lance set up here. Actually, here, Pete. I did the whole show. We talked about Jojo leaving. My thoughts that we recorded all those episodes. You can see him in the library. What's your thoughts on Jojo here getting out and going to NC State? Most likely. We don't know where he's going. Maybe USF, who knows? But I think NC State most likely.
Yeah, listen, I'm a fan of we lost Steve Money here. I've said it before, man. I'm a fan of the talent, fan of what he can still become. I think a fresh start at this point was kind of needed for him. And I think that he's someone who should really be able to get his confidence back once again, getting up there with CJ and getting to a place where they might force feed him the ball a little bit more. They've lost a lot as well. You just know he's going to be more comfortable there with CJ Bailey, more comfortable with, I think his situation and I don't want to, there's no reason to play a blame game here and say, well, this is why it didn't work out for him at Miami. But I just hope that he embraces this opportunity ahead. And he's a big talent. We saw him play hard. We saw him even here at the end of the season when he wasn't getting the football, blocking hard until the very end, even with the limited reps that he was getting. So you give him credit for sticking with it. A lot of guys in this situation would have been your classic, hey, South Florida diva, he puts his head down, doesn't really do what he's supposed to do, and it becomes an absolute non-factor for the team. That wasn't the case, man. He even through his ups and downs, the injury stuff, early part of the year, late part of camp, stuck with it and was a contributor to this team even near the end, right? Maybe not a huge role, but I give him credit in that respect for sticking with it, right? So I think once again, it comes down to confidence with him. It's a tough adjustment for a guy to make when you are a star player your whole life, a star player throughout the high school scene, top 50 type of recruit, high 4-star recruit, and then it just doesn't gel for you right off the bat at Miami, and it takes a couple years. So I think he just needs to get his mojo back.
Jojo gets his mojo back. How about that? That's a clickbait. When he
hope so,
catches
man. I hope
150
so.
yards a
Yeah.
game in NC State against Pitt, we'll do Jojo.
But D, what I was saying is that I think that he's I give him credit for, even at the end of the year, man, he was blocking hard. There's a lot of guys over the years in that same exact situation that would have quit the team, that would have hit the portal mid-year, and that wasn't the case. So
we had other receivers that left, and he stayed through. No, I have no issue at all with anything Jojo did. It's unfortunate it didn't work out. Some people are saying he doesn't have hands. I think he does have really good hands. He just didn't have confidence. He was tight. He was in his head. He was not mentally where he needed to be when he's dropping balls that he catches with one hand in practice. So I think he needed a fresh start. I'm sure everybody wanted to work in Miami, including him, including the coaches, including obviously all the fans that we get. But when he really had 2 injuries. Talk about the ankle injury. He also had a concussion. So he had multiple injuries that kind of slowed him down when he was trying to get rolling. He had guys playing better ahead of him. And when he had chances in games to get everybody's confidence, he was not able to make the plays. Again, I think being out of rhythm, being tight, being in his head, lacking confidence, all those things contributed. And these were small sample sizes. This was not like he got a million passes thrown in his direction. So I think when he goes to a place like NC State and they're throwing him the ball a lot and he's able to make mistakes, he's not trying to win a championship. People are like, oh, why did we just throw him the ball a lot? I mean, we were trying to win a championship. And the guys ahead of him were in a better position to help Miami do that. So I don't think we should have done anything different in that way. This is not our job, the team's job is not to get Jojo going. He could have helped, obviously, because he's an explosive player and he was really explosive in the spring. But there's only so much you can do for one player when you have a team that's trying to win a championship and you have older guys that are doing what they need to do to win a championship. So I don't think Miami's in the wrong at all. I don't think JoJo's in the wrong leaving, and I'm going to be cheering for him at NC State. I'm going to miss his videos because they were click machines. We got to do videos when he has a good game at NC State. That's the JoJo got his mojo back. When he gets 150 yards against Pitt, get that video ready. That'll do numbers.
Yeah, I know it'll happen. We know it'll happen, and we know that what people will say at that point, if it is the case. But with everything that was said, he still had people. People can argue it wasn't ample opportunities, but he had opportunities, and they weren't necessarily seized when he had them here.
Yeah, exactly. And look, development. I've seen Restrepo develop. I've seen Malachi Tony develop. I've seen Jacoby George develop. I've seen Isaiah Horton develop. I've seen the older guys we brought in get better. So
and look, I will say this when it comes, because I know what people will say with Malachi Tony, right? The same thing that people said to me when I said that you got to give Dawson credit for helping develop Cam Ward, even though we knew the talent was God-given. But who's putting that guy in a position to succeed? Who's putting Malachi Tony in a position to succeed? Is it the offensive coordinator? Is it the receivers coach? Is it the fact that him and Carson Beck have a great connection outside of, again, his talent, his football IQ, and just being prepared and ready for the moment? But are we just going to not say that his receiver coach has an impact on what's going on? I don't. Keelan Marion, a guy who came in here and a lot of people said was a pure kick returner. Watching him grow over the year and become a very consistent player for Miami.
Big catches in a semifinal at receiver.
So, I don't, and you can say that he has, that they haven't had big time draft picks, right? But I would also say, look at the production without big time draft picks.
Yeah. And look at the blocking. That's what I can come back to. Our receiver room blocks more than any receiver room in the country. That's team culture, crystal ball top down, but also position coach getting his room right. Keelan Marion, by the way, doubled every single stat. Just pulled it up. Every single stat from last year doubled. Touchdowns, receptions, yards. So,
yeah,
if that's not development, you tell me what it is. We got the man in the bullpen, ready to break it down. Upon further review, brought to you by Canada Financial, man himself, Lance Roers. Lance, how we doing?
Hey, I'm great, guys. How you doing?
Doing excellent, man. I mean, look, I know it was a tough day there at the office here on Monday, but I'm fine with it as far as, I'm not playing. I'm sad for the players. It sucks. I hate that they don't get another chance at it, but it's not like Ohio, the Fiesta Bowl, where you had a nasty injury at the end. You had a terrible call. I mean, I just thought Miami got out executed. I know you're a big post-game win expectancy guy, or at least you believe in that kind of stuff. I mean, I think it's kind of BS when you have a 30% post-game win expectancy against Ohio State. And we had 75 in this Indiana game where they controlled the game. But you explain it to me, because you know the numbers. Why am I wrong, and why does that actually mean something?
Yeah, so I wouldn't start off saying you're right or you're wrong, right? I think it's just one way.
That's how these things work. You got to say something, bash me. This is like first take. You got to say I'm wrong or right, man. Come on.
Man, the shock jock career was not for me. I can tell you that, because I think there's definitely sides to both, right? So I'll start with the Ole Miss game, right? So in the Ole Miss game, what post-game win expectancy is trying to do is basically just regress the volatile, high variance plays to the mean and trying to assess, an actual talent performance in a game from a down-to-down perspective. If they were to play this game, 100 times, what would we expect to happen as those high variance plays kind of regress to the mean, right? And so Ole Miss was more efficient from a down standpoint, especially in the second half of that game and into the fourth quarter of that game, where their expected points added per play, things along those lines, started to outproduce what Miami was doing. There's definitely context involved with that, whereas, Miami was kind of controlling the game with their run. We all know that run plays are going to have a lower expected, points per play just because of the nature of what a run is. But when you're controlling a game and you're staying kind of on schedule, and we kind of call that success rate. So like if you get 6 yards on first down, 6 of the 10, that's a successful play. You get half of what's needed on second down, that's a successful play. And if you convert on third down, that's a successful play, right? At least in this metrics methodology. And so another thing that it does is it regresses turnover luck. So turnover luck is essentially like, let's say you have 3 fumbles in a game and you recover all 3 of them. That's most likely fortunate, right? Just due to the fact that the ball can bounce anywhere, those kinds of things. What it's trying to do is regress that to an average rate of recovery. And it's trying to do the same for interceptions. Where I feel it missed the mark a little bit in that Ole Miss game is, we all agree Miami dropped at least 3 interceptions in that game. I would say it was probably closer to 4 or 5 in that game, right? So if you're going to regress fumble luck, in my mind, I believe you also have to regress what I would call dropped interceptions, right? And maybe assume that if you play that game 100 times, Miami comes away with 2 interceptions, right? Let's say, the catch rate on that's not 100%. Obviously, we all know it's not 100% throughout football, but that's one of the big things where it fails, in my opinion, in that Ole Miss game, because it does not take into consideration like dropped interceptions and things along those lines. Another thing that to me, it definitely doesn't take into effect enough. It does try and regress like third down and fourth down conversion percentage based on what the down and distance of the play is, right? But Miami all year has exceeded what would typically be a conversion rate on 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, right? Just due to the nature of the team that they've built out. In my mind, you can't compare them to what the average plays are for that or across all of college football, just due to the nature of the team, right? Just like you wouldn't expect to compare them to 3rd and 16. Miami's not built that way. They're not built to pick up 3rd and 16s the way some other teams are, right? Every team's going to struggle to pick up a 3rd and 16, but maybe the average is 10%. You'd expect Miami to get maybe 6 or 7, right? But if you regress it to the full 10, you're giving them a little extra credit. That's the way all the math works. And that's how in that particular game, because Ole Miss did not fare especially well on 3rd down, you regress them up. You regress Miami down a little bit because they performed really well on 3rd and 4th downs in that game. And that's how you get a situation where it looks like maybe Ole Miss had a higher post-game win expectancy. In this one, the blocked punt, obviously, was just an outlier of a play. If you look across every game, how often a punt is blocked for a touchdown, it's, a minuscule, it's a decimal place of a percentage, right? Well, that happened in this particular game. obviously. And it was the biggest play of the game, right? It was essentially 6-point expected points added play, which is the most you can get, right? Because, a touchdown's actually only worth 6. So in that particular sense, that is going to swing your win expectancy a large amount, right? Because that play probably happens once, twice out of 100 times. So when you regress that and take away a large play like that, that's going to obviously hinder Indiana's post-game win expectancy. The other with that is, Miami fared very poorly on third down in this game. I think at one point they were 0 for 9. You regress that to, maybe a 3 for 9, 4 for 9 type of deal, give them some expected points for that. And that's how it works, right? You just add up all those expected points from all that regression. At the end, it gives you a score for both sides. And, then you kind of just run the calculation. Long-winded way to explain what that is. So overall, I believe in data. I believe in math. I also believe there is some nuance to the way that it works. And in aggregate, it's going to be great. It's going to be a great statistic if you look at 100,000 games, right? Which is what it's really trying to do throughout the season and assess an overall impact of those teams, right? I think another important context to remember with post-game win expectancy, it's using that one metric that you see on your screen right now. It's using that SP plus metric. So if the SP plus metric favors one type of team over another, it's going to naturally err on the side of that team overall because it believes their performance is going to regress to what their SP plus is. So again, the personnel changes, injuries, people coming back, formation, as far as let's say, 90% of the season, you've switched from running a particular play on third downs as your tendency. You find something that works for you. SP plus not going to capture the full amount of that just due to the nature that it's a summation type statistic. So overall, that's the way that works. I do believe in it. You and I, we texted a little bit after the game, and I know you're a big Indiana guy.
Well,
I know you.
So this is why I wanted to bring this up. So we
Okay.
got,
all right.
You see the explanation, right? So people listening, you're hearing the detailed explanation of what the number means. It's helpful for me because I just see it. And I'm a caveman. I mean, I keep swiping myself out of this stream in the middle of it because I can't even use the swipe pad. So I am a caveman with this stuff. And the real question we're getting to, Lance, so you're going to answer, I'm going to kick it to you, I promise, is, my view of it was, look, Indiana was the better team. I'm at peace with the loss because they just won it, right? They won it. They did what they did all year in terms of not making mistakes. In this case, it manifested, and we had a putt blocked and they didn't, which wasn't how they won all their games. But fundamentally, they didn't make as many mistakes as we did. They didn't make as many mistakes as their opponent pretty much in every game. They had a quarterback who made the plays that needed to be made, including running our linebacker over, which to me, as a caveman, it's kind of like trial by combat. When your quarterback runs over your linebacker, or when the other quarterback runs over your best linebacker, and I got to have it, you just kind of tip your hat. That's my view, old view of it. And then, of course, they made all those third and fourth down conversions with back shoulder contested catches, which they did kind of all year in terms of the play. Now, I'm saying all that, but the numbers, it's not just Connolly. It's I think most of the post-game win expectancies are saying the opposite. And then in the Ohio State, which I thought we were the better team by far, and the score reflected even with the interception for touchdown, that the score reflected the physical presence of the respective teams and the execution level of the respective teams. That we only had a 30% post-game win expectancy. So it's like, my question to you is, do you think that Miami not could have won this game? I think we all agree Miami could have won this game. Do you think Miami should have won this game, Lance Roers?
Yeah, that's a difficult question to give a definitive answer, right? As far as
that means no in Lance translations. I'll just say it out right now for everyone in the audience. I'm sorry, Lance.
Lancellations?
Yeah, the Lancellations. I like it.
Trying to do something there.
It's tough. It's tough to win a game when you trail the whole time, right? Like at no point did Miami lead the game. At no point did I get the sense that Miami was in control of the game. Indiana, in my opinion, was so impressive in this game. They just do not make mistakes, right? So think about Mesidor, right? And he gets a rush off right tackle. I mean, he gets his arm right on the ball for Mendoza, and Mendoza shrugs him off, actually controls the ball and doesn't fumble in that. That is a 95th percentile play. That's a fumble, right? Whether Miami gets the fumble recovery or not, that goes to the fumble luck I talked about. But 95 out of 100 times, that's a fumble. Ethan O'Connor, jumps an out route, and he just didn't trust it. He didn't trust it. He if he just goes, that's a pick six, and we're talking about a different deal completely, right? But the fact of it is Indiana made those plays, and they made those plays all year. This wasn't an anomaly. That is the way they play, right? Where it's just efficiency over and over and over. And I talked about on the pod before the game, Indiana is great about pressing the bruise, and they found a bruise with Miami being worried about their vertical shots. And so Indiana just continued to save the back shoulder plays for the biggest moments. They would threaten the vertical, get the DB to open his hips because they knew that they could hit it because they did it all year. And then they were able to hit those. Some of those catches were super impressive from Becker, one that he made on the sideline on a 4th down. That's a game-changing play, right? They scored a touchdown on that later on. That running over our linebacker doesn't happen without that catch. And it was a heck of a catch. I saw some people on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, after the game, and they were, let's just say, disappointed in O'Connor's performance. O'Connor played well in that game. He played just fine. He was there for contesting those catches. He gets his hand on a ball. I just talked about, he could have had a pick six. They threw at him 8 times. He only allowed 4 completions, which is an excellent number for a DB, especially against a very good team. That the Indiana's offense, what they average, like 43 points a game coming into this.
Yeah, 2 NFL players on both sides of those passes.
Very good receiving core. I think all 3 of those guys are going to play in the NFL, honestly.
And the QB.
I mean, I don't know if they're going to be stars necessarily, but I think they're all going to play in the NFL. And then the QB is going to go number 1 overall. Right? He's a slam dunk going number 1 overall in this draft. You add all that together. I wouldn't say that Miami should have won the game. Miami absolutely probably wins this exact game the way it went more often than they don't. And that's what post-game win expectancy, again, is telling you, because the punt block was just that big of a play. I mean, that was a punt safe. They weren't even trying to block that kick. I don't know what happened as far as Joyce, going outside of the hash. I can tell you from experience, my level of talent was, a special teamsy guy. So I can tell you from experience, the outside blocker there does not expect your punter to be outside his hash there. He's just basically releasing him because his number 1 priority is inside shoulder. Now, there wasn't a threat there, so don't get me wrong, Bauman didn't play that well. There was no threat on his inside shoulder, but his number 1 priority is his inside shoulder, that no one splits the gap. And then he's supposed to shove wide because his punter's not supposed to be outside of the hash. I don't know what happened there. I don't know why, but it did happen in this game, and it was the biggest play of the game. Now, you also have the 4th down conversions, right? If Miami gets 1 stop on any of those, it's a game changer, and Miami misses a field goal, another game changer, right? Where now you're in field goal range late. That changes everything, but it also changes the way Indiana calls the game, right? So let's say the game is a 3-point game or a tied game late. Whenever Indiana's got the ball, in our territory, they're probably not running 4 or 3 straight plays, right? So you can't just say if this one thing changes, nothing else would change. I don't believe in that. To me, Indiana was the best team in college football this year. I was pretty transparent about the fact that they don't make mistakes. They did not make mistakes in this game. How many penalties did they have now? You could have called several on Pons, in my opinion, and some of their outside corners, but you could have called some on us that you didn't as well. The deep pass where, Miami clearly pulls the jersey of the guy and it goes incomplete on a 3rd down. That's a 1st down in our territory, field goal range. Again, those things you kind of, you run the string out, it changes the game. Here's where I was super excited. Miami belonged in this game. We were playing a 15-0 team that, housed almost everybody they played all year long. I mean, they made Oregon look like a JV team, right? They absolutely just housed these teams all along. And then they get to Miami And Miami was right there. You will not hear a single person that says this wasn't a great game and Miami didn't belong. To me, that's indicative of a process that is taking root and lends itself to more of longevity. Indiana, in my opinion, they really kind of ran into a perfect storm. I think they're going to probably be good year over year, but this team had so many things go right to go 16-0. I don't think that's something that's going to happen again. Miami, would they go 13-3? That was a sustainable record to me, something that you can continue to see. 14-2, something like that is sustainable the way Miami built this team and is building this team. Indiana, what did they have fumbles lost for the season? Like one, it was a record.
They fumble a lot. I don't know if you dug into that stat, because I know fumble luck is a big concept, but
They
like if they
definitely
don't
had
fumble
fumble
the ball, the fumble luck doesn't really come into play as much, right? It's if the ball's loose that's when it becomes into play, right?
Correct. Yep. Yeah, they did not, no, they set an all-time record for fumble percentage. They set an all-time record for fumble loss, at least as all-time as long as they've tracked that stat, right? I don't know what the 1939 Notre Dame team did or whatever, but those things are probably not sustainable. And then also their penalty percentage, right? Their penalty percentage was just kind of, again, off the charts. They also had a defense that just absolutely fit together. So do I think they're going to fall off to, 8-4 next year? No, I think they're probably going to be a playoff contender again. And because, you got billionaire money from Cuban and all those individuals pouring money into the program now that you've won a national title, I don't blame them. Miami does the same. And I kind of like it too, though, right? I kind of like having, an Indiana get that far. I feel a lot better about an Indiana winning it than I would have Ohio State, or something like that. Somebody you just love to dislike, right?
Already disposed. We disposed of them already, man. That was.
Well, I didn't do nothing. I didn't play.
Yeah, we all just watched. But the quality wins of this season to me is kind of, as we sit back and look at it, you talk about silver medal, whatever. I look at it as you beat Ohio State. You beat Ohio State by a bigger margin than we've lost in the past 2 years to anybody, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. Beat Notre Dame, beat really the best that the SEC had to offer this year. I think clearly establishing that the SEC has taken a step back this year. Miami was better than any team in the SEC, clearly, I thought. And the results, I think, showed.
Clearly,
yeah. Beat your rivals, right? So the quality wins this year. I know Notre Dame had some quality losses. We talk about Miami's quality wins this year were just awesome. And as good as any, honestly, as good as any season we've ever had because of the playoff format. Like, would that be? I have to go back and look, but I bet we.
I can't say that you don't win the title. And you won it 5 times. No, this wasn't.
Well, I'm saying the season. I'm saying the volume of quality, like top 10 wins. I have to go back and look. I bet it's on par. I think 87. We had 4 also.
Yeah.
But because we had the extra games, I think we beat more good teams this year than probably any year.
Yeah, several times this year, right? I've kind of posted up, put my podium up in a sermon about, we beat Florida State, beat Florida, beat Notre Dame. We strongly dislike those teams, right? We vanquished Ohio State. We beat Virginia Tech at Virginia Tech, which has been a house of horrors for us over the years, right? The week they hire their, excited coach, right? We go to Pitt in the cold and trounce them. Right. And that, again, is a house of horrors. How many times have we gone up to Pitt and laid an egg or a performance, that was not on par with what you would expect? Even the 01 Miami Hurricanes, greatest team ever, went to Boston College in the cold, right? Just very similar deal and almost lost that game. You didn't see that from this team. I think another thing you can really kind of talk about, November 1 is I believe we lost to SMU, but after that, they put to bed that kind of like falling apart at the end of the year that you've seen and you hear about with Mario. Again, another thing, I feel personally that Coach Cristobal took a step forward in his, game day, the way that he did things. There were a couple of decisions I probably would take back in the Indiana game. I'm probably not kicking a 50-yard field goal in on 4th and 2 personally. But overall, to me, you saw a more aggressive coach. You saw a coach that was trying to play in what I would call playing to win a little bit more often. Those are all things that I believe give you a level of confidence moving forward that this is for real. Man, it stinks to lose the national title game because it just puts a cloud over a lot of things. Let's say they don't get into the playoffs, right? And you don't have this run. Now you're like excited, next year we're going to take that next step. We're going to get that playoff, do those kinds of things. But now it's expected. Now, you go to a national title game and lose. Now it's expected that you go back. And guys, this is not easy. You hear the Dan Marinos, you hear the players, that have made it to the Super Bowl and they think, oh, I'm going to go back. A lot of times AJ Hawk said that, on the whatever the guys, cast that they did, McAfee cast. Yeah. He talked about, he went early in his career. He's like, oh, I'm going to do this every year. Never went back again. Right. And so I personally, I really want to enjoy this season. I want to celebrate this team. I know in the end they fell a little short, but goodness, guys, what a run. We're talking on January 23rd, and we're still talking about games that we played this week. Spring football starts in 4 weeks, and we're going to do it all again.
So, I talk about the numbers all the time, and I'm like, do the caveman thing, but there are a lot of numbers that I think are just obviously true, and you can't really say anything about it, even though they're analytics or newer kind of things. The success rate and explosive play rate, that distinction, which is a newer concept, like, newish concept, even though in football people have talked about it forever, but in terms of like quantifying it and putting it out there, it's been a 21st century concept, let's say. This team, to me, watching it, not knowing the numbers specifically, but certainly seemed like a model of success rate over explosive plays, meaning there weren't a lot of bad plays. They got the plays they needed to on first down, second down, converted, whatever, but they weren't getting these huge explosive plays like maybe some other teams that have been in a top 2 position have done. Explain a little bit, it doesn't be in crazy detail, but just for the average person listening, when we talk about success rate, you talked a little bit about this when you were explaining the post-game win expectancy, but what success rate means and kind of how it fits with what this 2025 Miami Hurricanes, how they played.
Did you hear that, Pete? He was managing me ahead of time. He's like making sure I don't go too in depth there. Did you hear that, Pete? I caught it. I caught it. Yeah, no, basically it's just, are you staying on schedule? Like football coaches for years have talked about staying on schedule. They're just talking about success rate. It's just a different way to say it, right? And then, you talk about big plays and some of those other coaching terms that maybe the old heads like us, who grew up, that's all they're talking about again. They're just talking about explosives. They're talking about their explosive rate, right? For Miami, as the year went along and as some of these games played out, it was apparent to me that Miami was managing their quarterback. They were managing their quarterback in a way to put him in a position to be the most successful, right? And as the year went along, I believe he kind of found a way to get the best out of himself. And that involved some of the runs, some of the plays with his legs that we saw, right, in the Ole Miss game and a few of the others. I think it involved the screen game and some of those short plays, but I think they were definitely trying to avoid Beck throwing the ball too far downfield. Just because of the way this team was built, it's a team that really couldn't afford a lot of turnovers.
Lance, I'm sorry, man. We're talking too much about this game. The things in the past. We gotta talk about next year. Damon Wilson. How about that pickup? I know you're there in Missouri, right? So you have some sort of like extra film watching you've done on Wilson, or did you watch him throughout the year? Your thoughts on him?
Yeah, so I don't know if I've ever actually like proclaimed it, but I am not a Mizzou fan. I am, in fact, quite the opposite of a Mizzou fan. The way that Miami fans think of Florida State, that's about the way I think of Mizzou, right? Wow. In this rivalry, I'm a Missouri State guy, right? So not a Mizzou fan at all. But to answer your question, guys, 56 pressures in the SEC. This is a player who has all kinds of juice. You can really think of him as a David Bailey would be kind of like for our listeners, that are probably, more familiar with that guy and what he's been doing. So he's got that kind of potential as well. He's got the potential to go top 10 next year. He really does. I think coming in, with Jason Taylor and some of the development that he's going to get here, no offense to Mizzou or anything along those lines, but I do think this program has the opportunity to bring out a little bit more in him than that Mizzou program does. To me, this is a game changer and even possibly a season changer for Miami because of their build, right? It's very clear that Mario is building a line of scrimmage team. For that, you can't lose a Bain and a Mesidor and a Blay and just expect the second teamers to kind of step forward and not give them any kind of reinforcements. So this is kind of your Mesidor replacement in my mind. He's a little bit of a thinner guy. He's not going to be like your Bain, elephant end, power over everything type player, but you can adjust the way you do that. We've seen Heatherman do that with some of his prior defenses where, his ends weren't 275 and use some more of their explosiveness. To me, the guy is absolute juice on the outside. He is your complete bend, spade, run the arc type. Not super great at running at playing the cop or the Roscoe technique on film, but that may be something that they can teach and do a little bit better, or maybe you compensate, right? You just
Roscoe. Explain the acronym. It's one of the best acronyms I think in all of sports.
Roscoe no perish.
I think it's one of the best acronyms in sports.
Yeah, so it's rush outside, contain on edge.
I mean, how good is that?
Yeah, it's just basically don't go, all the way upfield, right, and lose contain on the edge. And
mobile quarterbacks keep in the pocket tight.
Yep, Miami was great about this year, and it's not just in the pass game. Think about Bain, how often he contained on the edge and that one arm play, against I believe it was Ohio State. Those are all examples of Roscoe. It's a staple of what Heatherman does, or at least to this point has done. So I think that's going to be an area for improvement for Damon Wilson, but you are also, you're adding a Hayden Lowe. I saw our good friend Gabby, Urrutia, maybe that's how it's pronounced, but he put out a tweet, showing Miami's D-line next year, all 5 stars, your six of them. I mean, guys, if you can't play defense with that, then, you probably need to find something else to do with your life. So tell me, guys, what are you thinking about the O-line? So to me, that's an area that I get a little bit nervous right now because you got a lot of projection and you got some players this year that maybe were not your strongest links who are going to be asked to take big roles right now. I haven't seen, we got Jordan Seaton still sitting.
I have a bit of news and I'm kind of working through it I've kind of been trying to figure some stuff out as we've been on here, guys.
All right.
So interesting. Heard last night because Seaton's not the only offensive lineman Miami's been involved with. Jamal Merriweather, offensive lineman from Georgia, he visited last week. Okay, and a guy who has some versatility, can play some tackle, guard, has played in the last couple of years at Georgia, but hasn't been a featured player for them. Miami is really high on his upside. Now, Miami's been going after has been going after him and Seaton. Miami would like to get both. From my understanding, okay. There was even some talk that Merriweather could be enrolling in Miami today. Now, from Seaton's perspective, I don't think Merriweather affects Seaton. Seaton's not going to care about what Merriweather does, but I think Merriweather is watching the Seaton situation closely. Okay, if you see what I'm trying to say there. Again, Miami would take both. Getting both might be a tougher situation, but news just hit right now this morning, the last half hour, that Merriweather is visiting Texas this morning. So I don't know if maybe Miami's feeling better about Seaton. That's me maybe jumping to a complete conclusion there. But I don't see them coming empty-handed on both of these guys here.
No, and I just checked with some people that would know. That one's going back and forth, Seaton. And we said it. That's why people are like, oh, D, you're being wishy-washy. I know how these things go. This is a high money negotiation. He knows what all the schools bring. I think Miami on the non-money stuff is the best option, both from the outside looking in, and I think he sees it that way. Every school is going to say we have the best situation, but when you just break down offensive line development, the cultural deal, he's a city guy. He trains in Miami already. He's in Atlanta right now. He's from DC. I mean, I think this is pretty straightforward on that front. It's going to come down to money. And for me, sitting here without being in the room with the negotiations for the back and forth, you're not going to, Oregon had a momentum yesterday. I can tell you that. I can tell you Miami's right in it right now. This is back and forth. So we'll find out with everybody else. Miami is definitely, though, right in it. And I think all things equal, he picks Miami. Lance, on the offensive line front, your boy from Southwest Missouri,
Jackson Cantwell.
I heard he looked good here in these practices. Like, he's not like a fish out of water. We've both had concerns pass blocking. Just, you're going from a team that runs a lot against not that great competition relative to other places. I know it's good competition in Missouri, right? As you shake your head, but pass blocking is going to be there's no Ashari Charles. There's not that many Ashari Charles type guys walking around in Missouri. Maybe there's one, but there's not 10. So he's going to have to make that adjustment pass blocking wise. But I heard his power, as we'd expect, has been ridiculous. As we know, those hands are pretty unique weapons, and he's tossing people when he gets a hold of them. He's got to be the right tackle. He gets paid too much.
Yeah.
It's the Malinois deal. I think he'll be the right tackle. Okunlola at guard, I think he was really good this year. He could have easily been a starter. Some people might thought he was our best guard, right, including Inez. So even though Inez was every down player, these other guys, Okunlola rotated. So I think we're fine with those two. McCoy is the weird one because I saw him at tackle, Lance, when he first got here, and he looked great. He was a tight end. He moved great. Guard, he's been up and down, but the interception that Beck threw, he got beat pretty badly on that one. Mm-hmm. Is he going to get beat even worse at tackle, or is he one of those guys that for whatever reason you give him more space to operate and he becomes a better tackle?
Yeah, so this is one of those things you don't want to go head to head with D-Money too often on opinions. You got a good track record. You get them right. You get them right most of the time, man.
That's not true. But go ahead.
A couple that didn't go your way, but you don't want to be on the opposite side of D-Money too often. I know. But I think pretty much from the beginning, you've been higher on McCoy than I've been on McCoy. And gosh, I never want to say anything negative about our players. So this isn't anything negative about, the player, right? We're just talking in comparison to championship programs. To me, McCoy's a utility guy. I don't think that you can have him as your starting left tackle and play the way that you played this year. Maybe you play a different way. Maybe your quarterback, masks a few more of the things. Ward masked a lot of things a couple of years ago, right? Where, maybe this year Beck wasn't able to do that, or his style is a little bit different. Maybe, if you do end up getting Mensah to come here, he covers up a few of those things. But to me, McCoy he's kind of like a third option right now. I would be disappointed. I'll say this. I would be disappointed if he was our starting left tackle next year, based on the build and the way that you've created your program. You do not use the pace and the space to, help your offensive line. You've got those tight splits again, which kind of, makes a little bit more on the outside that you kind of have to get to. He's an athletic kid. He's developed. He's exceeded where I, thought he was going to be from when I watched him, on his high school tape, right? But to me, I think you need to solidify that spot, and that has to be, maybe it's a Merriweather, maybe it's a Seatan, maybe it's somebody else in the portal. To me, I think you've got to take a surefire left tackle, and if McCoy beats him out, all the better.
P, what are your thoughts on this? Because look, my discussion of McCoy, a lot of it's based on projection, things I saw when he first got here, playing a position he hasn't played in actual games. His size, which for those who've seen him in person, he is bigger than you think. He's like a massive guy, McCoy. And then, the athleticism we've seen at times when he's out there in space pulling. The reality is what Lance's saying is true. You watch the last play of the game and many others, he's had some really rough moments just pass protecting at guard to say he's going to be our left tackle. So you, Pete, who you had a first-round tackle there at FRM while you were an agent with Titus Howard, who's still a starting tackle in the league. You've been around a lot of these guys. You've been around a lot of coaches and scouts trying to talk about what are you looking for? What do you see? McCoy, do you think he could be a tackle?
Well, I think he's got the adequate tools. The question's this, you got a guy like him who's played exclusively guard here, right? Maybe in practice they've worked him in a little bit. But if you're going to make that decision, he's better be working at all. I don't want him cross-training. I want him working only tackle this offseason, because what happens is these guys, it's happened with my guy Titus, is they moved him around a lot, especially early in his career when he was a bit, unsure of where his final spot would be. And still to this day, I mean, he started a game at guard in the playoffs and at right tackle. So you have to have that versatility. It's a weapon. But for a guy like him who has had those issues in past pro at times, I want the entire offseason dedicated to it. I don't want them flip-flopping and saying, okay, there's still a chance. If you're going to make that decision, and look, mirror ball and crystal ball, who am I to question anything they do offensive line-wise? I'm just saying he's going to need a full offseason of this work, is my opinion of that.
Yeah, what do you think about the fact that as a guard, he was much better in run blocking than pass blocking, and Samson at guard was much better at pass blocking than run blocking? What is it that makes McCoy the assumed tackle rather than Okunlola, who, kind of came in with more fanfare as a tackle? For the listeners, what is it in your opinion that makes it where McCoy is talked about as the tackle and Okunlola is the guard?
What do you think, D?
I'll put my lawyer hat on, but I've seen McCoy play tackle. And I've seen Okunlola play tackle in practice. So this cheating in that way is this, that McCoy to me looked better when they both played tackle in practice. So that's kind of like the first thing. But I think physiologically, and again, maybe there's a reach, stop me. Okunlola really is a wrestler, right? You couldn't put Samson at tight end and throw him passes. Like, he's not that kind of athlete in how he operates. He's very quick. He gets to the second level great. But he's really a wrestler in his body movements. He knows, you see him how he kind of torques guys, and that's really where he's at his best. Whereas McCoy is a former tight end. I think the more space he has, the better he operates. He doesn't have the best necessarily balance and just kind of control that you see with wrestlers, that you see with Samson when he's in tight spaces. So I think the more space you give McCoy, the better he can use his tools. Whereas with Samson, I think when he's in a wrestling match, that's where he's at is in his element, because that's the kind of athlete he is. That's my theory. Is total BS, and I've never coached a second of offensive line in my life. All I know about offensive line is gap down back.
Me either.
That's just kind of what I see when I see them in their different spots. Could be totally wrong.
Yeah, I think your theory is it has some merit. I think also the fact that these coaches who, to Pete's point, this is kind of their specialty. They know what they're doing, right? Anytime I get on here and I go loudmouth, right? I'm not saying I know more than these guys, because I don't, and they're getting paid millions of dollars for a reason for this. I'm just telling you what I see on film and some of the concerns that I have for a team that builds its identity on line of scrimmage in both sides. But if you look at their recruiting, you've got couple of wide receivers already committed in the transfer portal who are both pretty good. You've got Tony, who is better than pretty good. And then, there are also some rumors right now where Miami's right in it for another Duke transfer player who, believe it or not, is, kind of like a cherry on top of this receiving room if he ends up coming. And you go from what I would call a pretty good receiving room this year to an elite receiving room next year, if all those guys are there and healthy. And then, to me, again, this is in no way trying to disparage, but Mensah's better than Beck. I watched Beck. I watched every play of Beck for 2.5 years. And I have identified some of his limitations and some of the things that make me think this is who Beck is. And, as I kind of watched Mensah, I started to kind of pull him ahead, quite honestly. And I would also
I want to keep this discussion, but I want to stop you. 10 o'clock. How long we got you? Because we got some.
Let's go 5 more minutes.
5 more minutes. Before we resume this discussion, tell us about Canada Financial, what they can do for your small business. I met at the Lickin', a happy client of Canada Financial, who reached out to Sebastian Canada, huge Canes fan, through the show, having seen the ad, and very, very happy with what Canada Financial is doing for one of his businesses. So I spoke to a happy customer at the Lickin'. Tell tell everybody else what Canada Financial can do for their businesses.
Yeah. So, the financial world is one of those things where not everyone is, predisposed to be able to do that. You're out trying to grow your business, right? You're a small business owner and you don't want to be caught up in bookkeeping or forecasting or trying to understand where you should be, spending your time, spending your dollars. And that's why you reach out to our friend Sebastian, at Canada Financial. Let him kind of take over all of that. He's going to give you that strategic financial guidance. He's going to do the bookkeeping for you, budgeting, forecasting. Basically, you're going to be able to hire a CFO without the CFO salary, right? Who's going to be able to free you up to spend your time growing your business and doing the things that you need to do to be your most profitable self. To me, that is kind of something I'm passionate about. It's what I do in my day job as well. And I understand, someone who can tell you true as well, who can just kind of give you the truth of what the numbers are seeing, right? And maybe you make a change in the way you've done things in the past based on it, and you see a growth, even if you're already successful. So reach out to our friend at CanadaFinancial.com and he'll get you set up with a CFO that can get you right.
Breaking news right now, guys. The playoff is staying at 12 teams next year.
Thank
Good to
Lord.
hear.
Thank the Lord.
It's already long, right? Try adding 24 and it's like crazy. And the SEC is just trying. The SEC is just trying to do their game, right?
Big Ten too. Big Ten. They're not.
The Big Ten's earned it. I mean, you got 3 years in a row with a different Big Ten team winning it. That's impressive. That is conference strength.
This Roers guy's a Big Ten shill, man.
Unbelievable. This is not that SEC crud, where you got these guys playing nobody, beating nobody. Number 14, Mizzou, big ranked win, who doesn't beat a winning team all year. Tennessee doesn't beat a winning team all year.
Ham says it's not breaking news. It absolutely is breaking news right here.
Yeah, of course it is.
Lance, hold on real quick. Is Missouri considered the Midwest or is it considered the Southeast?
Midwest.
I'm not.
Yeah, so you're out of place there in the SEC to start with.
Yeah, and I'm at the very, very southwest portion of Missouri. You can't get any more south than where I'm at, basically, because you'd be in the Arkansas border. So, these Mizzou is 2 hours north of us, right? They're closer to Iowa than they are Arkansas, so that's more the south.
Oh, I love some good Missouri banter. I love the Missouri banter.
I can't stand Missouri. So, no, Missouri is Midwest.
So, but 12-team playoff, look, I was against the 12-team playoff because I thought 4 was the right number. I've now acknowledged I was wrong. And I think what happened was because the parity increased after the portal and the NIL, there were more teams that could win. So 12 teams became appropriate for the changes that were happening elsewhere in the game. Whereas before, there were really only 2 or 3 teams that could win, and 4 was fine. So I think I was wrong.
I think 8's right, but
or whatever. Expanding it was right in the light of the increased parity.
Yeah, I agree.
16. Did we really need to see a 3-loss Texas, a Vanderbilt team that lost to Iowa in the bowl game and had many limitations? I mean, who else would have made it from that group? Notre Dame, I guess.
Utah.
That could have been,
Utah, BYU, Texas, and you just said the other one, Vanderbilt. Those would be the 4 that made it. Hey, those teams are all good, but this is a little bit of an anomaly to me. I don't want to start getting into the 4-loss teams, the 5-loss teams making the playoffs, all because they've got a commissioner who can campaign really well, right? Or because a team has proven that they can lose games to good teams, right? That's all Notre Dame did this year, was prove they can lose to good teams, right? That's what Texas proved this year, that they can lose to good teams.
And bad teams too, but Texas is
Florida. Yeah, and Florida, a team we trounced. So anyway, I think, the SEC myth, I think it's being, exposed. And they're losing another one, right? We took Damon Wilson from them, one of their best players, right?
We gave them Malik Bryant. It was a Malik Bryant for Damon Wilson trade. It just reported Malik Bryant's going to Missouri.
Yeah,
so 1-for-1. I think he got the better end of that.
But, and I think he'll do okay there, quite honestly.
Yeah,
I think
he's a good player.
I think Malik Bryant's a nice player. But real quick, before I go, and I know you'll probably have another question for me too, but real quick, I want to circle back to what you guys were talking about when I joined, right? The Jojo thing, right? So I think another thing that maybe we didn't kind of talk about, right, is just success is not linear for all of us, right? How many of us out there have worked for a manager who was a good manager, either, good guy, good woman, whatever it is. But for you, their style just did not click. It did not highlight your strengths. It did not motivate you in a way to develop properly, right? We've all probably had several bosses in our career, right? And I think you could rank them in your mind right now. You can kind of think of ones that you jived and were great with and you'd love to work for again, and maybe some that weren't. And that matters, right? And it doesn't make one manager bad for another. It's just we're all different people and we have different buttons that need to be pushed. Mario is a red ass. He is very much, a routine, rigid, this structure. This is the way you're going to do things. His coaches are going to be the same way. He wouldn't hire them if they weren't philosophically aligned, right? And that doesn't work for every single player. Some players, they need a different voice. They need a different sound. Jojo is very talented. He did not always make winning plays here on film for whatever reason. And if he goes to NC State and he gets a different voice and it clicks for him and he figures out what works best for him and is successful, that is not like a negative on Miami or a negative on Jojo while he was here, right? That is just some places are better fits for some players than others. And being aligned with a voice that works for you is something that can work for all these players. We see it all the time. We see players change places and they play better there. It happens in the NFL. It happens in college. You see it all the time. And I hope that for Jojo. I hope that for every player that, comes to Miami and lays their, blood and sweat on the line for them and decides to go elsewhere. And I wish them success. And the same for Jojo as well. But just remember, success is not linear for every player. For every, Malachi Tony, there's 100 who kind of have to figure it out as well. Being an adult is not something I was real good at, at 19 years old. And I kind of had to find my way in college as well. I think if I knew then what I know now, I probably would have been a much better player as well. I would have probably gotten more out of my talent. And you're going to see that with other players as well.
Love it. The professor, Lance Roers, brought to you by Canada Financial. Appreciate you, man.
Thanks for having me, guys. Take care.
Later, Lance. We got more Seatan news.
Let's keep the Jojo conversation going, though.
Well, we have more Seatan news. We have
breaking Seatan news. Let's go.
Well, yeah, breaking within the last hour. I was looking for it. I saw people talking about it, and I hadn't been able to find that article, but I have located it now from Inside Maryland Sports. Maryland is expecting a visit this weekend from Jordan Seaton now. He's from DC.
Yeah, maybe his girlfriend up there or something.
Well, this is what they're saying. They're saying that there is a catch potentially. The weather. A major storm is expected to dump 5 to 10 inches of snow in DC this weekend, which could affect his plans on Thursday, per a source close to Seaton. The two sides were working on a contingency plan just in case. And then the other note is the vibe is that Maryland is making a serious play for him. Whether that means the offer will be high enough to get him, we'll see. But I'm told Jim Smith and all the brass are all in on trying to add the former 5-star Jim Smith. I don't know who that is, but he sounds like a fictional character.
Default player, president.
They said, so this is a chance to back up his comment this fall that Maryland, quote unquote, won't be outbid for players it wants. Listen, I'm glad to know if Maryland gets them, it's because they paid more money. What that means in terms of how much money they can offer, I don't know. Seaton could command between $3 to $4 million for next season, and Maryland hasn't done those kind of monstrous deals. But Loxley has a long-standing close relationship with Seaton. This again from Inside Maryland Sports. We'll see how much of a factor they become. I think Oregon has made a push the last 24 hours. Miami to me, though, D, seems like the one school that's the entire time been around. I think LSU thought they had him 3 days ago. That did not happen. Lane was trying to chase him around. I think their confidence has waned a little bit. Miami's been around here. Even through all these visits, you continue to hear that Miami is very actively engaged in discussions. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's that's where he's from, right? So he's from DC.
Yeah.
This thing, like I said, it's the last move. This is about the last move. Is Miami going to pay whatever the last best offer is? If they do, I think he's going to go to Miami. Meaning, Miami doesn't have to come up more than the last team. I think if Miami comes equal with the last team, Miami will get Jordan Seaton. That is my strong opinion based on information, based on kind of common sense. Sometimes you guys just look at the whole.
I love strong opinions.
I know his visit went really well and we were happy with how it went. And then if you just look at, again, all the indicators, objectively, everybody knows, his agent knows, his uncle knows, everybody knows Miami's the best place to develop him. We all know that. That's not us being Canes homers. People who are not in this race, if you ask them, hey, which school is better offensive line development?
I mean, Lane Kiffin himself was saying it, right?
He said it when he was recruiting a receiver. He goes, if you want to be a tackle, go to Miami. If you want to be a receiver, come to me. Now he's trying to recruit the tackle and he's saying something else. So we know, Lane has not developed a single tackle at all that I can think of. Has any tackle been developed by Ole Miss in the last 5 years? No. So that's obvious. Miami's the better place for him than LSU development-wise. Oregon, they've had some pretty good players. Josh Connerly was a 5-star that got drafted late first. Josh Connerly probably should have been a top 5 pick. I don't think he played to the level of his talent. And when you read some of the scouting reports from him coming out of Oregon, it was great talent. He should be better than he is. Maybe he can get in the pros. Isaiah World, $1 million plus player out of the portal, was really not a very good player this year for Oregon. Their tackles were weak and they got exposed. I thought Texas Tech beat them up, but they won because their defense stopped Texas Tech's offense. And then when they played Indiana, it was a blowout. So tackle-wise, Miami's the spot to develop him. We all know that. Lifestyle-wise, I'm not in his brain, but the fact that he's in Atlanta right now, that he's always training in Miami with Malinois, who he played with in IMG. He's from D.C. He's going to D.C. now, it sounds like, for this Maryland visit, maybe. He's a city guy. So that's on our favor. I heard the visit went awesome. Just comes down to, can we match? And I don't think we're going to know that until literally the last offer's on the table, and this thing is at the very, very end of the process. This is not, to me,
remember his recruitment process was very strange as well.
Yeah, didn't he flip at the last second to Colorado, or
and then even after he flipped to Colorado, there was talk that he wasn't going to sign with them. So he announced on Good Morning America or something like that.
We got to get him on with Tom Yamas, the NBC Nightly News, our boy.
Yeah.
CanesInSight subscriber Tom Yamas from NBC Nightly News. He'll have Seatan on. Only if he's going to pick Miami, of course.
Right.
I guess tax-wise, also, Oregon's got tax problems, I think. In terms of the tax on the $4 million.
You're the Oregon guy, man. You're the Oregon resident.
Nick West in the comments will let us know, but I'm pretty sure Oregon, if I had to guess, their tax situation is not ideal. Who else is in this conversation? Louisiana, probably. I don't know Louisiana. Miami and Florida, we have the best taxes for people with money. So we're talking $3+ million taxes comes into play. I mean, it's amazing the money we're talking about here. Yeah, there you go. Nick West. Oregon tax is a mofo. So, I doubt Maryland's even much better. So, we'll see on Jordan Seaton. I could see why we're so hard after this player. We need a left tackle. We talked about it with Lance. The McCoy thing would be a projection to put him out there and expect him to do it. I think he can, but you're riding. It's a lot riding on him being able to play it like you had with Markel Bell, who's one of the better tackles in the country.
Something I'll say on Seaton 2D, which, fair or not, I think something that is being used against Miami right now is that even though the Mensah thing, we expect it to go through and expect it to be Miami's quarterback, I think that's a negative recruiting pitch being used by other schools as, hey, look, that guy's not going to be able to play for them. Are you sure you want to do that? Would be interested to see if because that's still something we'll be tracking the rest of the day here, probably do a show on later, regardless of what the decision is, because people are going to be freaking out if if the thing gets denied, which really doesn't mean anything other than we still just have to wait until February 2nd, really, for him to enroll essentially after that. But I wonder if this thing gets decided today, if they move it up to today, does that maybe help the Seaton thing go through?
Yeah, great question.
Thinking out loud.
We'll do a legal show here coming up on all the stuff that's happening. But yeah, Mensah, we opened the show with it. They're trying to speed up the process. So ultimately, at the end of the day, it's going to come down to Miami. I think Miami is the one that I don't say holds the cards. Seaton's the one that holds the cards. He's the one that's going to get paid. But Miami's the one that I think can end this by making a financial decision. Just, we will match what the highest offer is. Come to Miami. All right, you're a Cane. That's how I think this ends. Either we match or we don't. So to me, to sit here and say I know how it's going to go, I can tell you I got text this morning saying there's back and forth. I thought Oregon had an upper hand yesterday. Right now it's back and forth. So I'm not in the room. We're not in the room. I suspect we'll find out what everybody else does. But it'll be financially driven decision with Miami having the edge on all non-financials, including having the best team.
Let's make those financials right.
Only one way to do it. You know what it is. CanesConnection.com/CIS. I see my man Nick Isaac in the chat. He's a proud supporter of CanesConnection.com. There it is right there. CanesConnection.com/CIS. Exclusive offers for Canes Insight members. Be part of this thing, man. Don't just say, watch the 6 ring. Be part of that 6 ring. So when that trophy gets held up, we finish the job that was started this season, you'll know that you did your part to make it happen. Then just watch other people do it. You were part of it. Like Nick Isaac says, everybody better join. You want to get Jordan Seaton. You want to get Damon Wilson, which is in the boat. You want to get some of these other players, Darian Mensah. It's not cheap. Simple deal. It's money. CanesConnection.com/CIS. Be part of the solution. Also, while we're talking about all this stuff, people helping Miami win a championship. Not many people helping Miami more than U Health Sports, University of Miami Sports Medicine Institute. If you're an athlete, consider yourself an active person. You know how hard it is to sit on the injured list with pain or injury, maybe even try to hack your own rehab. But if compromising your movement or performance is not an option, call the experts at the University of Miami Sports Medicine Institute. Whether it's elite athletics like you see on the field at UM or just everyday movement, the experts at the University of Miami Sports Medicine Institute will help you get back on your game. Make an appointment today, uhealthsports.com. Last one, talk about our friends at KashKick, one of the biggest apps on planet Earth. KashKick, 1.5 million plus downloads, 4.5 plus average rating for KashKick, KashKick. You're trying to kill some time until this Mensah decision comes through, until the Seaton decision comes through. You're watching these Canes podcasts. You got time in between. Probably playing games on your phone, messing around. Make extra money during that time. Go straight to your PayPal. The games are all consolidated on the app. Surveys, browsing. KashKick. Give your free time a raise and make real money on the side with KashKick in the App Store.
Josh Sarnoff, talking about Canes Connection, says, Rees Law will tell me how much more we can contribute in a few weeks. Go to Rees Law, get right, and then you can figure out, man, how much you can contribute.
So I want to talk about Beard, Pete, because the chat's going insane with Kevin Beard, Jojo Trader talk. I'll say my piece and I want to get your thoughts. You know, being around sports from the youth sports level, from 5-year-olds playing sports to 23-year-olds playing sports. When people have a connection to a player, whether it's a player they coach, whether it is a family friend, whether it is their kid, there is going to be emotional connections to the player. It is at every single level, in every single neighborhood, in every single part of the country. When the player has a tie to the parent, friend, other coach, personal trainer, whatever, there is a bias involved. We all do it. I have my own kids. We all do it. You don't necessarily look at your kid you train, the same way as the coach of the team might. Sometimes that person might be right when they're questioning the coach. Sometimes they are wrong. I say oftentimes they are wrong because they're biased naturally. It's just doesn't mean they're a bad person. It's just the nature of this deal. So when we talk about the Jojo Traders, the Ray Josephs, people who come from this community, they have people who have been part of their journey and have helped them and know the kids personally, know their struggles, know what they've overcome, know what they've done. So naturally, there is going to be a bias. It is not mean they're a bad person, means they're trying to hurt the program. It means that they have a bias towards a player. It is something that happens literally in every single sport across the world, certainly United States. So I don't read too much into that. I accept it for what it is. You know, guys get flack because they're pushing JoJo or they're pushing Ray Ray. These are guys they know. What do you expect to happen? When it comes to attacking Kevin Beard for not developing these players, I can say being there at practice, not every day, but certainly every day in camp, every day in spring, and more than most. I don't think that the reason that those players didn't find success in Miami is because they lacked development. I saw other players getting developed. I saw Isaiah Horton coming as a raw, skinny basketball player into a guy that now you're seeing him as one of the better players in the portal and was a productive player for UM on a number one ranked offense. I saw Xavier Restrepo get significantly better during his time.
I think Restrepo has to be the crowning one there, right?
To me, the crowning was Jacoby George because I know how where he was, and even though it wasn't perfect, he was able to improve in various facets, including physicality and his ability to control.
Rocco Kane's calling you for sitting on the fence on this one. I don't really see how
I'm speaking the truth.
You're speaking the facts on the situation.
I mean, people are biased. This is the nature of the world. I'm biased towards my own kids with their athletic performance, so I have to check myself because I know what I'm seeing is not what the world is seeing because it can't be. So I think people involved in this are biased, and I don't think they're bad people for being biased. I think it's normal. I think if you look at the results, I see Isaiah Horton as a developmental success story. We didn't benefit from it because he went in the portal, but the guy's a top 10 player in the portal right now. He certainly benefited. We had one season of very good play. Restrepo's a developmental success story. Jacoby George, to me, is the biggest one, given where he started, right? Keelan Marion doubled all of his stats this year on a better team, a team that went to the championship. So he developed as a receiver here, even though he was an older player. These, to me, are all developmental success stories. Brashard Smith was not a receiver. It's not Kevin Beard's fault that Brashard Smith did not play receiver. Brashard Smith was a bad receiver. Brashard Smith is a very good ball in his hands player. That's why he's returning kicks at a high level at Miami and in the pros. That's why he's an NFL running back. He's a running back. It's not Kevin Beard's fault that Brashard Smith was a bad receiver. He wasn't a receiver. He was a running back. So I don't know why that gets lumped in with Brashard Smith. JoJo, I just think is at a different developmental point. When he had opportunities, he didn't make them. I think at NC State, where he can play through his mistakes, right, and not have the pressure of dropping a pass and getting benched for players that, quite frankly, were playing better than him at this time on this championship team, I think he will develop in a way that Romello Brinson developed. Romello Brinson went to SMU. He's going to the Senior Bowl. Does that mean that Romello Brinson wasn't developed properly while he was here? Or maybe Romello Brinson just wasn't ready at that time, and now he's had an opportunity to play through mistakes, and he made plenty of mistakes at SMU, but come out on the other side, get older, get more physically mature, get more mentally mature, and now he's a pro prospect. Like, it's okay.
I think, D, if we want to, if I think people are actually completely wrong on, if you're going to criticize something, and I'm a Kevin Beard supporter, I'm a fan of his, but I've been consistent about this across the board. You need to land, Miami needs to land more elite guys at certain spots. Like, I point to this comment here. Marcus Johnson says it's time for KB to put someone in the league. How can we recruit the best wide receiver without having someone to point to? It's almost chicken before the egg because, like, and here's my thing, like, you want Kevin Beard to go out there and run the 40-yard dash for Xavier Restrepo, and I'm not saying that to take a shot at the kid, but he had physical limitations KB couldn't do anything about. Yeah. KB got the most out of what Restrepo had.
Put him in the rafters.
That's where I'm saying. So if you want to, I'm going flip side on this. You got to continue to recruit, and people will say, well, JoJo was a highly rated recruit. Continue stacking guys like that. Not every single one of them are gonna pan out.
And can I be realistic about JoJo, by the way? Because I think JoJo, I've always said he thought he was a corner. Now, he did enough at receiver and he looked good at receiver when I saw him in camp that he looked like he was going to be our leading receiver. So he has enough at receiver that you could justify him playing receiver. No question. I thought he was going to be our leading receiver coming out of spring. Me. So I'm not saying he is not a receiver, should be a corner. However, go look at JoJo's stats at Chaminade. He wasn't that productive. Now, he was good. I was ecstatic to get him. Again, I thought as early as this spring he'd be a leading receiver, so I'm not trying to diminish him. What I'm saying is it's not like Jojo came in here ready-made to play. Jeremiah Smith came in ready-made. I think Jeremiah Smith, Kevin Beard would have been just fine developing him into a top 5 pick. Quite frankly, I would have been just fine developing him into a top 5 pick. It's not that hard. But
and why can we pick and choose and say he developed this guy and didn't develop this guy? Why can we do that? Like, I'm not saying anyone knows for sure. I think everyone has a part to play in what happens here. Canes says Restrepo put himself in the Raptors. Double Stick says, but who did he develop? Because he didn't develop Tony at all. So why can we pick and choose and say he didn't have a part to play in certain guys' success, right?
Like, first of all, Tony right now is a million times better than he was at at American Heritage last year. Go pull up Malachi Tony's highlight reel at American Heritage last year. It's his highlight reel at UM is better. Now, who gets 95% of the credit for all these things? Malachi Tony,
the player, 1,000%.
Xavier Restrepo, which, by the way,
but you can't say it's in spite. You can't say it's happening in spite of Kevin Beard. Like, Kevin Beard has a part to play in what's happening.
Every single player is the most important player in their development. That's everybody. This idea that, like, oh, the guys that are good because of them. The guys that are bad because of Beard. Why doesn't it work both ways? If Tony is good because of Tony, is JoJo not performing because of JoJo? Like, it doesn't work both ways. That's why I'm saying it's ridiculous, the double standard that these guys are talking about. It's all, again, based on emotion because there's a tie to the player. I get it, but let's be real about what it is.
Gambit says,
appreciate your support. Go ahead, read it, Pete.
He says, 1, our wide receiver room was awful before Mario. 2, need to stack talent. 3, JoJo's a cornerback at heart. 4, recruiting is like hiring. Nothing's a guarantee. 5, Jeremiah created open looks for JoJo. 6, KB's a good coach. So
what I come back to with KB is the blocking. Our receivers block more than any receivers in the country. That's not me saying it. That's national guys. Pete, how many times did you hear that from national guys all year? That is not like an automatic thing. It involves development. So I think that's something you got to look at and give the receiver coach credit for the culture of the room. But you can't just say, give everybody credit for, like, when the player's good, it's because of him. And when the player's bad, it's because of the coach. That's ridiculous. Like, let's be clear about it. And again,
Double Stick says Malachi's highlights weren't that great because he had to play quarterback. That was really only in the playoff run for the whatever it was, right? So not really.
Like, you look at JoJo and Yashamanad, and people are going to get mad when I say this. It's the truth. Everybody gets mad at the comments. I'm happy you were mad because you're just watch the film and tell me I'm wrong. Jason Lopez was better at Chaminade than Jojo Trader. By a lot. Not even close. Look at the film. Look at the numbers. At Chaminade, Jason Lopez was better than Jojo Trader. Now, I think Jojo Trader has higher upside. I think when Jojo Trader is 22, he could, if he works hard and does the right things, he could easily be the better player. But Jojo came in at a much lower place, I think, than people realize. Now, he is clearly very talented, which is why out of spring, I said, this guy I think is going to be our top receiver. He moves different than all these other guys, except for maybe Tony. But there was a lot of work to be done, and he had injuries, an ankle injury, concussion. He came back, or he got hurt when Beck was coming back, so him and Beck could not have chemistry together. That's just bad luck because Beck was out when he was balling, and then when he comes back and gets hurt, Beck is in there, so they couldn't develop chemistry. But he was a guy that he didn't just require a lot of development from a coach. He required time. Like, Jojo needs time. He needs reps. And he was not good enough because of the injury, because of the way he played when he got back, to play on this team. He was not as good as the guys that played on this team. I think he could be better down the road than those guys. This team, he wasn't. And what he needs, it's not a coach of sprinkling magic dust on him. What Jojo needs is time and development and maturity, physical maturity more than anything. And I think him going to a place like NC State where he can drop a pass and then go right back on the field and they can lose 5 games and no one cares, that's going to help him. And by the time he's a senior, maybe he goes back in the portal as the best player in the portal, right? Or maybe he's going to the draft as a first-round pick. I hope that happens because I've only heard good things about the kid. But this idea that, yeah, everybody that's not developing is because of beard, and everybody that's developing is not because of beard. It's an emotional approach based on bias people.
Comment here from DJ to Third. He says, Pete, I disagree with your Dawson take, but I agree with the KB take. Not KB's fault. Which Jojo the best? And let's move on. KB's a good coach. I guess it's the Dawson take about Cam Ward, how he helped him. I mean, I don't see how you can disagree with that take whatsoever. Like,
but I would say Ward was further along coming in than Jojo was, which is, I mean, he was an older player.
Yeah.
By the way, we got some super chats we're going to get to once we change the topic. So don't just because we're not responding, don't think we haven't. I think it's going to be great at NC State if he goes there with all the familiarity with CJ Bailey throwing it to him, his old running back Bullet Gauss in the backfield. Chance Robinson will be out there. Teddy Hoffman, who he didn't need that much development, he came right in rocking and rolling for NC State. You know, I think that's going to be a good situation for him. I hope that's how it works out. But you guys know, everybody knows how these bias situations work. You've seen it in your lives in all levels of sports. So like, why do you think that goes away now? Like, just take it for what it is. You don't have to, one person's not trying to destroy the program or anything else. You don't have to take it that way. I'm just saying, let's be realistic about where people are coming from and why they say the things they say. Not bad. It's not malicious. Just the reality. Is that being a politician, Peter? Is that keeping it real? You tell me.
Probably a little bit of both. Politicians can keep it real. Why not?
But anyway, so I wish him the best, man. I hope Jojo kills it. And I think he will. I look at Romello Brinson. Pete, remember, Romello Brinson was a disaster here. Like he was not playing well at all here in practice, in games. And then look, last year, 43 catches, 638 yards, 3 touchdowns. The numbers don't blow you away, but because he's so talented, he got an invite to the Senior Bowl. Jojo, if he does his thing, will have an opportunity, I think, to really cut the line because he does have athletic ability and movement skills that are pretty unique. And I think he has good hands. I think he was just tight here. I think he has good hands. So great chance for him to do his thing. I'm excited to see the rest of his career. And I'm excited to see the new blood in this receiving core because, Pete, from one day to the other, this receiving core is completely different. You lost the entire 23 class, the entire 24 class, and your 3 transfers that you had this year. Gone. All you have is 25, the freshmen, and then the new transfers. Brand new.
Yeah, excited about what they've brought in there. And then obviously looks like Cooper Barkate as well. I think there's a good chance he's visiting this weekend, D. So hopefully that comes to fruition from what I understand. There's a chance that happens this weekend. And then, of course, got to get his buddy Mensah enrolled here as well. But Barkate's, we talked about him at length. I mean, I don't think people understand how good that guy is. And then you got Jacobs is someone who has the speed to take the top off of defense, and they think that there's a lot of room for him to continue to show his ability. Cam Vaughn, great size, body control, has maybe a little bit more giddy up with the ball in his hands than CJ Daniels did, and didn't have a great quarterback situation in West Virginia. So the guys they're bringing in, I'm a huge fan of. Obviously, Jojo gone now. Hopefully they can hold on to Josh Moore here. I don't think I'm speculating, but this is a guy you've now had a couple, you had Pringle enter and now back. Moore is someone that I'm just crossing my fingers you can hold on to.
Yep, I'm with you 100%. So super chats I want to get to. By the way, appreciate you, Primetime Rambo, working night shift on this deployment, and the constant streams makes the time fly by. Keep it up. Who will seize the third safety spot? By the way, thank you for your service and support as always, Primetime Rambo. Third safety. So let's say Bryce Fitzgerald, Zechariah Poyser, Omar Thornton. If you consider him a safety, I think he'll be a safety and a nickel. He would be probably that guy. In terms of a full-time safety, we are both pretty big fans of Dylan Day, and I don't think there's any reason to get away from him. Although J.J. Dunnigan, I heard, if there's going to be a freshman All-America, I heard he's one of those candidates based on early returns.
Serious buzz on him. Do you also maybe bring in a Conrad Hussey here as well, which we mentioned at the beginning of the show, maybe as a depth piece there? But Dylan Day, I still think there's a lot of believers in what he can be as a player. It was in the right spot a lot of times this year and just wasn't able to make the final play or the play that you're like, okay, that now I see what everyone's talking about with him. But talk about someone who does the right thing every day and has, is in the building when he's supposed to be before, like he does all that stuff, that he's someone you want in the locker room. And by the way, this is a guy who he can run. He's a violent player. I think it just comes down to, I don't want to say it's a confidence thing with him, but continue to get more reps because he's seen time here and there. But now in the spring, maybe where you get even more run, I think it should be real good for him.
Extend Mario, Mo Hussein's saying every single time, I appreciate you. Gambit, another question here. What's our way too early starting 11? I'll say defense because offense is too much flux. I would say defensively, I would say Damon Wilson on one side, Hayden Lowe, Marquise Lightfoot combination on the other side. Hayden Lowe early downs, outside Lightfoot, late downs, outside passing downs, and maybe Lowe moves inside or just gets off the field. So I'd say those guys in the mix. Put Scroggins in that rotation too. Defensive tackle, Moten, who's coming back, Justin Scott, Armando Blunt. Let's say Jarquez Carter as that fourth. I love that group we just walked through. That defensive line I think is going to be outstanding, even though you lose the two best defensive ends in the country. Linebacker, Motoré. We've been saying it, Pete, so I don't think it's breaking news, but he's coming back. He's been expected back the whole time. But Motoré, I think we're back in there. Popo Aguirre for now. He's played and done a good job, so I think you put him in that mix. But it could be another linebacker added. That wouldn't shock me. But I think probably those two with Kamal Bonner, Kellen Wiley pushing up to play Pruitt, linebacker / safety. And then Poyser, Fitzgerald, and Thornton as kind of the safeties and the nickel, depending on how that works out. And then on the outside, the same guys we had this year. Pretty good defense, I think. Losing Bain and Messidor is a huge difference because they're just so impactful. You cannot replace those guys. But I do think that's a good defense. I don't know. Did I miss anybody there, Pete, you want to throw in?
No. Off the top of my head, no. I think you hit it all there.
One thing I want to get to, people, before we get out of here, and Ethan O'Connor, as JVP mentions, same people as last year at corner, I think. We got to talk about this, Pete, because this to me
hopefully you hold on to all four of them, but that's
right. We'll see. That's a fight right now. But I think either way,
that's a fight.
Jabari Antoine's coming in too, so we'll be all right there. I got to talk about this, Pete, because this to me is probably the biggest news of the day. Portal news and everything else is going to be what we focus on. I get it. But in terms of just like newsworthiness nationally, this is insane. So Miami versus Indiana in the championship, we were both there. Surreal event to be at. Celebrities everywhere. The president was there. I mean, it was the biggest thing going. Look at these numbers. 30.1 million viewers, 33.2 million at peak. Second most watched college football playoff title game ever. And this is not like the 12 team. No, all the college football playoffs going back to the first one, which was the highest rated, the first one. So it was the highest rated since. Most watched college football game since that, which was 10 years ago, 2014, 2015. Actually, 11 years ago. So put that in perspective. 11 years since there's been a college football game watched like this. Second best cable telecast ever, anything. And then this is the one that blows my mind. Most viewed non-NFL sporting event since the 2016 World Series Game 7 when the Cubs won in extra innings to win their first World Series in over 100 years. So no NBA, no other college, no MLB, no Olympics, I'm guessing, right? Most viewed non-NFL, no World Cup, most viewed non-NFL sporting event since the 2016 World Series Game 7. So if you want to talk about Miami being box office, and like Indiana had a lot to do with these numbers too, they were a great story. But Miami,
I'm laughing.
Michael Irvin was on Saturday Night Live.
I'm laughing because, I'm a soccer guy, and I'm just trying to put numbers in perspective as a huge number. The Champions League final had 145 million live viewers last year.
You can't, some people don't know better. What can I tell you? Cricket gets a lot of views too. But But in terms of the country that matters here, we're talking about insane numbers. And the fact is, Indiana and Miami are not Alabama. They're not Georgia. They're not these teams that have been in this position for a long time. It's new blood. Again, I think Indiana had a lot to do with this number. They had really good stats in their other games too. But Miami, we saw how much coverage they got. And why? So put these two teams together, all the storylines, Mendoza, Mirabal, Cristobal, Miami, the whole deal. You will get this great number, which, by the way, was a great game. Great game for all those people.
Great game.
I was happy to be there. I mean, look,
I was just, I was just glad both teams had fun, right?
I was glad that both teams played hard, played well. There were no injuries, and it was a competitive, physical, good.
Man, I don't know, man. It's a lot of kiki and a lot of happiness, man. You have a lot of great memories about a game that we just lost, D. I don't know, man.
You got to live in the moment sometimes, Pete.
You can live in the moment and still be disappointed. I think, again, probably a little too much positivity being spoken about this game, but.
Well, because, Pete, we were in the Shreveport Bowl. Like, people were like, why are you like that?
Dude, I'm very excited. I'm very excited about the season we had. But
too. We're on the same page on this.
I'm
talking about, like, when you're small time, when you grew up a Miami fan, born in the big time. We were both born in the big time. Like, when we started watching Miami, it was the show in town. And then to not win championships, but to be a complete irrelevant joke, that cut deeper to me than losing the championships. Fiesta Bowl was a particularly tough loss because of even not knowing what happened after with the decline, just because of the injury to McGahee, the way the refs took it from us. It was horrible. But to not be in that position is so much worse, and to be a joke and to watch everybody else, and now to not just be in that position, but to be breaking records because people are so hungry for teams like Miami to be back. I think it's badass, man. I think it's important. I think it's going to help us when the next playoffs come around, even though they won't say it outright, is like, hey, man, Miami not only delivered on the field in this playoffs, but they delivered ratings. Like, they're a big time team. It just gives you more benefit of the doubt and makes you more of that legit powerhouse team, as opposed to, hey, watch our documentaries, right? This is real. This is just happening. This is not a documentary. This is in 4D or whatever. What's it called? The nice pixelation, not 4D. What is it? Like the extra clear video clip, 4K. You know what I'm talking about?
No.
What's the really good quality on your screen? What's the really good quality? 4K, right? 4D, 4K, 4K. Rocco says 4K.
Strava says 8K.
I don't know what kind of stuff he's got going on. 4K. So it's not fuzzy video. This is 4K. People watching University of Miami doing this thing. And I think that is very, very important.
4K. That's what Jordan Seaton is going to get per second at Miami.
Yeah, man. Seriously. So appreciate everybody joining the show, man. Remember to like and subscribe to the show. Remember to check out our friends at the Miami Hurricane Team Store. Commemorate this run. Get ready for the basketball run starting today. Big game, right? Bounce back game here today, Pete, for our boys, Jay Lucas's boys.
Tomorrow.
20% off site wide and the Miami Hurricane Team Store. Promo code INSIGHT20. We'll still get 20% off first item and in the store. But Jay Lucas and his boys.
Tomorrow. You said today.
Oh, it's tomorrow? I thought it was today.
Yeah. Syracuse tomorrow.
Okay. So big bounce back.
No ACC. From my understanding, we don't have any ACC Friday night games. It's not a thing. ACC basketball.
Canes hoops. I didn't realize what day it was, man. This portal's got me all screwed up. So Canes hoops, support it. Canes baseball getting started. Practice. I was out there. I think they had practice today at 3. I might roll through there on the way to Storm Sessions. Interviewing a pretty big interview today. It'd be cool. I'll let you guys know when it's out. But support all the teams and commemorate this great run. Miami Hurricane Team Store, MiamiHTS.com. All right, Pete, we'll be back on when the next portal shoe drops. Might be in about 10 minutes, but a lot going on, man. Remember to like and subscribe to the show. Got anything, Pete?
Nothing I can share at this moment. Go to the Discord to find out.
Oh, there you go. Like and subscribe to the show. Go Canes.
Go Canes.